Hello. Can you hear me?
Yep. I'm gonna mute this for a second while we get organized.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
If I could unmute us. There we go. Hi, Lisa.
All right, it is
Hi,
6:30. Hi, Lisa.
Hello.
All right, it is 6:33. I'm gonna call the January 14th Finance and Audit Committee meeting to order. My name is Michael Tierney. Joining us tonight are committee members Ben Falk, Michelle Hirsch, Terrell Mickens, Sarah Pasty, and also present are Marissa Marvelli, Ruth Katz, and Mike Ham. And Andrea Shaw, our illustrious president. First order of business, controllers update, John.
Thank you, Mike. Well, wanted to be here. It's nice to see some new faces. There would be a warmer weather tonight, so just to give you an idea, so every monthly finance committee meeting, I do a financial update. I'll email you generally the day of. The same reports you hand out tonight. In addition, I'll also send you some detailed accounting reports out of our financial system. You know, if you care to look at them, it'll show expenses and revenues by department. So if you ever want to see how we're doing year to date on certain items in the budget, all that information is in those detailed reports. I don't print them out because they're dozens and dozens of pages. So what I'm giving you tonight is more of a top level view. I did speak with Terrell Mickens. Was the last meeting we spoke about doing some type of training. If any new council members care to join Terrell or just make an appointment by themselves with me, my office is always open. My door's always open to go through city finances with you. Whatever level you'd like, I can talk about what annual financial reports we do. On the recording, I can go through the budget process. You'll hear a lot of terms that we throw out a lot in government: fund balance, contingency. They can be a little confusing, so I can go through that with you. Some are budgetary accounts, some are other type of accounts, and just some other top level type things that might be helpful as you're deliberating on things here. Can talk about like financing and debt bond ordinances, what they mean. There's some nuances to them. So, to the extent that you think that'd be helpful, please, reach out to me, and I'd be happy to sit down forward. So, I'm going to hand out a few reports tonight. One is like a narrative update on where we stand on certain budgetary items. And the other things are I think there's any update on that.
I have this real quick. I guess put it now.
Sure. The sales tax report. There's always, two reports, get it shut out fine, right? You want those? there was no extra enforcement in December because of the being shut down.
There was in January, because guess who got a ticket? This girl.
I don't know.
I went up to some frequent businesses because of the takedowns. I wanted to be nice. I got stuck talking to a business owner.
That's
And
the opportunity.
I had the opportunity, well, I got parking tickets, so I'm gonna say stuck. I think.
We'll put an annotation on that report.
That was
Let's bring up a good point. There's a number of report, that I normally mail each month that isn't in your email or your packet tonight. That is an extra enforcement partner report. In mid-2025, the mayor and the council agreed to expand parking enforcement. Primarily focused on safety type violations. So we had extra hours in the evenings as well as on weekends. So I have a report that I distribute that tallies the violations by type and then by dollar amount. And I've been handing that out each month. We did not perform extra enforcement month in December. The meters were bagged. So we will resume that now in January. So at the February meeting, you'll get that report. Okay. Before we get further into this update, I haven't really started yet. We're kind of at an in-between crossroads right now. So we're now into 2026. We have not closed out 2025 books yet. The report we have gives you an update through November. December numbers are the last month that, there's a lot of accounts receivable that flow into the next year, accounts payable. We'll be paying bills for 2025 up and through probably like the end of March. We have a report that's due to New York State. It's our annual financial report that's due May 1st. At that time, we will have our internal final 2025 numbers. At that point, I will update you on December. So after this month, you'll start to see me transition from 25 to 26, and then we'll circle back to 25 when the 25 numbers are complete. So this report is focusing through 11/25. And the layout of this report is we touch on expenditures, revenues. There's so many different expenditure and revenue categories. I can't touch on them all. I do try to touch on those that are significant to the budget in terms of dollar amounts. So in the top half under general fund expenditure highlights, I note that we are now in November, 91.7% through the year. It's 11/12. We have spent 88.7% of the budget. So that's favorable. We're 91.7% through the year, but we haven't spent, that full amount of the budget. A number of categories are running favorably: regular pay, consultants, fuel. The whole list is there. Unfavorable variances. Overtime is running pretty high in ambulance. This is, nothing new to those of you that on finance committee for a while. We didn't bring on full staffing until early 2025, mid 2025, right? By the time we get back.
Yes.
So we are covering some regular staffing with overtime. Overtime is still running high afterwards, but we have some longer term absences that are causing some of that, but it's not running as hot as it was before. Offsetting that is the regular pay line in the ambulance is running favorably. Also our collections on insurance billings for ambulances running strong. We have budgeted 1.5 million in billings for ambulance services. I expect that we will approach 2 million, if not more, in collections for the year. So, that's very favorable. Some other negative variances, part-time employees, running a little high there. Electricity, natural gas, and utilities. Hospital medical, we've been budgeting very close, not as conservative necessarily as we'd like. So we're going to be pretty close to budget on that, and that's a very large budget ticket item, but we're going to be pretty close to budget on that, but I expect that will be slightly unfavorable there. I also have a note there on retirement accumulation that's unfavorable. For those of you that are on the council for, you know how we do this, but when employees separate service, they're generally If they retire and under certain conditions, they would be eligible. They would be eligible for a payout of their accrued time. So as employees work years of service, they can accumulate sick time, vacation time. Some of that time rolls over from year to year, depending on the quantity, and what can be rolled over depends upon which bargaining unit contract they follow. When that employee separates service, they're entitled to a payout of that time. That money is not budgeted in a general fund budget. That typically comes from out of the contingency account, which is like a catch-all budgetary account, or we take it from the fund balance. So, you know, we have 133,000 in retirement accumulation payouts that departments are in the process of submitting budget transfers for. They are all contractually mandated under bargaining unit contracts. So none of that is voluntary for the city. On the revenue side, you have a sales tax revenue report. We were running relatively close to budget most of the year. The second to last payment, if you look at the 2025 amount column, that payment was $447,000 greater than the payment from last year. And just so I can explain in some more detail, we receive sales tax payments. They're from the state, they're passed through by the county. We receive them in exactly the same increments for the same time frames every year. So we receive the same number of payments every year, and they cover the same time periods. So you can always match and line them up from year to year to see how we're doing. At this point, there's 3 sales tax payments remaining. We are currently $677,000 over where we were last year. I will say this $447,000 variance on the second last payment. I have some questions on. County's looking into it. It is what I would call an anomaly. It's, most of the payments, if you kind of look at the history, individual payment differences, they're all relatively close to what the prior year was, and that one just jumps out. So when I asked the county, they didn't have any additional information at this time. They're looking into it. Periodically, the county will do what's called, the state will pass through the county, some type of correction or catch-up. So that could be a payment that it covers, a number of months. So we don't know. But on a yearly basis, we are up 3.64% over the prior year. Certainly looks like we'll meet budget and go at this point well beyond the 20.3 million. So the 2026 budget's 20.5 million. So I think it sets us up pretty nicely for this year. That covers, I should say too, on the second page of the narrative report, just real quick, this is, I'll bounce back for things as well, but the second page of the financial update covers, this is what I would call current and future budgetary stressors. Sometimes we'll be asked, I'll hear, well, we didn't really know, what kind of pressure we're under, the budget, we raised taxes last 2 years, high single digits. And it's hard to know prior to the delivery of the budget what those numbers are going to be, what the exact budget is going to look like. But I try to foreshadow what I see are pressures on the budget in this second page of this report. Some big ticket items, health insurance costs are by and large contractually mandated for employees, and they are increasing significantly every year, the last several years, and that's a pattern that's gone on for a decade or more. Personnel costs are a significant part of our budget. They are all covered by bargaining unit contracts. So there's limited ability, I'm saying, controlling those costs. Some other items are, if you read that, I won't read item for item, but the third bullet point the city was using $2.9 million of fund balance to balance the 25 budget. We reduced that number for the 26 budget. The best example I could give you in your personal life, if you're not familiar with what that might mean, is imagine if you were looking for your 2026, the monies that are coming into your bank account, whether it's, investment income or your wages or a pension or whatever, and you see what your expenses are, and to cover it, you're taking money out of and there's a difference. You see that your expenses are going to be more than your revenue. How do you cover that? Using fund balance is the equivalent of planning on taking money out of your savings account to cover that. So the more reliant you are on taking money out of your savings account to cover expenses, the more likely you're going to have a problem down the line, right? So the same with fund balance. We like to try to keep that appropriation of fund balance at a reasonable level. There's not a magic number of what that is. It's kind of like your savings account. You want to see how much is there, how much you can bring it to comfortably. Same concept with fund balance. We do have a fund balance policy as well, and I can test that out. And we are within the target ranges of keeping our fund balance within those limits, kind of like you have a target range for your savings account. We do the same here with fund balance. And the lower the fund balance goes, it can create cash flow issues, the ability to pay down debt. Our cash is very seasonal. Our tax bills go out at the beginning of the year. So towards the beginning of the year, we have a lot of cash. I say cash, not physical cash, but money in the bank, investments, etc. And the money those balances decline pretty steadily over the year, especially after the second tax installment is due. So pretty much from May to December, we're bleeding cash, and we do cash flow estimates, etc. And we're getting pretty well right now. We're pretty well. Tax bills just went out, and we'll build that back up again. Years ago, the fund balance was so low that the city had to borrow money to get through that window of time. So when the tax bills went out, it's not looked favorably by the rating agencies, aka if it's your personal life creditors. We're kind of like doing a payday loan, right? So we haven't done that in well over a decade. And then I have some other data there as well. Some data on sales tax and the change in sales tax year over year. Jumping back quick to the first page under other updates, I give you some balances on our investment accounts, which are all our investments are generally with a municipal cooperative. NILAF is the standard go-to cooperative investment agency for New York municipalities and school districts. I give you the current contingency balance, which is only $23,000 at this point. Once again, that's a budgetary account. I do have a budget transfer I'll be submitting to try to replenish that to cover year-end transfers. And then I give you the unassigned fund balance is what that fund balance, and we talk about what that savings account is. It's not exactly cash because our fund balance is the difference between that and cash is, we have receivables, we have payables, so that's not all liquid by any means. But we measure that on an annual basis when our audit, when our internal financial report is done. We reaffirm that when our audit is done. It generally doesn't change much from the internal. So our audit, our internal financials, I feel like they're very strong, very few adjustments. So I'll give that number to you each year. We're currently at 6. So the fund balance policy has a target range in it. And we're currently at 16.73% of our 2025 adopted general fund expenditures. So the fund balance policy is based upon, we use the general fund expenditures as like the measurement because we want to know approximately how much of the following year expenses do we have money in that fund balance to cover, right? So 16% is not even a month and a half of expenses that are in our savings account. That's that number. Well, I should say, yeah, it's 1/6, so maybe close to 2 months, but it's not a lot. You know, if you think about your personal savings account, you have 2 months of
It's
savings.
been normal, John, in the past.
The last several years, we've been sitting around 20, a little over 20. We try to keep it below 20. The fund balance is kind of it's a tricky thing, right? So I'll give you the pros and cons on both sides, right? The rating agencies love us to have as much fund balance as possible, right? 20, 30, 40%. There's no number that would be too high for them. They love it. You know, the city's sitting on piles of cash. The counter to that is, no, this is taxpayer money, right? So we want to maintain what is sufficient to meet obligations, to maintain a solid debt rating, but not so much that we're unnecessarily raising taxes, right? Now, on the flip side, if you go too low, now the big rating agencies come in and they slap you down, they lower your debt rating, which your credit rating, your debt rating, whatever you want to call it, it's one and the same. And it's the same like in your personal life. If you have a low credit score, when you go to get a loan, your interest rates go up. Same thing would happen in the city of Kingston. The situation where we would have to borrow money to get through the end of the year, that would happen. It has happened in the past. And the mere fact that you're actually going out for those loans, they call that a revenue anticipation note, is a ding on your credit score, and it's a heavy ding. Lenders hate to see that. It shows, presents concerns about management's ability, elected officials' ability to effectively budget city expenses, right? So,
Can you remind us what would be considered too low a percentage?
I would say if you dip below the 12, 13%, below 13,
Okay.
I would say you are at risk of revenue anticipation notes. But once again, it varies from year to year. An example could be, now, say we have a receivable for $1.5 million on a grant, okay? That is recognized as revenue on our financials, and it looks like we have the fund balance, but we might be waiting for that cash to come in. So it really depends on, from year to year, the liquidity of that fund balance varies a little bit. So I'm giving you some general rules of thumb. I would like to keep it somewhere, at least where it's at now, not too much lower. I had some sweaty days, this last month or so, kind of looking at, where our cash is, where our investments are, forecasting, our expenses come up. For an example, February 1st, we get like $4.5 million pension payment that's due in New York State. So, we have slightly more than that in the bank now, but not a lot more. So, it gets pretty tight when you drop much below where right now.
What is that payment based on, the 4.1 million, on the pension? How many years?
1 year.
That's 1 year.
That's 1 year just for police and fire. Okay. So we get an annual bill for, we get 2 annual bills from the New York State for retirement system.
Mm-hmm.
One is for what they call ERS, which is it's everyone other than police and fire. And it also includes civilian employees of police and fire. It would include dispatchers, clerks, etc.
Mm-hmm.
That's one bill. And technically, they're both due February 1st. You get a discount if you prepay it.
Right.
We're able to prepay one bill, not the other. And that's gone on like that for years. It's not a huge discount. So, and this payment that's due February 1st for police and fire is much more significant than the other bill. And it's not just because our salaries are higher, it's also because the percent of their salaries that we pay the retirement system is higher. Majority of nurse.
It's fine. Thank you. Thanks, John. I'm just curious what that pension payment was a year ago.
I can pull that up. I'll say. Well, it's top secret scroll together with my aggregator stuff. We got
Sorry.
dual factor authentication. We'll get it there.
just want to fully understand the stress.
So you're not line added that budgetary stressor?
It is in the, up in the second bullet point, employee benefit costs.
Okay.
And under again, medical literacy retirement, those are by far, in a way, the two largest, employee benefit expenses, for the city. And in terms of medical too, we also have retiree medical, so you factor that in. So let's pull up the retirement bill. And if you look at the budget, I can tell you exactly the page number. If I had it in front of me, I could, but it's one of the first few pages of the budget. It breaks down expenses by category, personnel, benefits. And when you look at, you're going to be the first that's service. So, it gives you an idea of where the money in the budget is, right? So, on page 10, there's a pie chart. So personnel services, which is payroll, 41.6% of the city budget. Employee benefits is 33%, and that includes retirees. So you're up to 74.6%. You add interfund transfers, which is debt service transfers to debt service fund, that's 9%. So you are up to, my math's right, 83.6% of the budget is employee and retiree related costs and debt service. So the percent that, we're working with outside that is 16.3% of the budget. And of that, a lot of that is fixed. It's utility costs, it's liability insurance, it's tipping fees to the landfill for trash. So, when you look at the budget, there's just not a lot of, what you would call discretionary costs at all. I mean, it's, the budget is highly contractual, right? So I'm pull up that bill. So the bill was 3.7 million last year.
So like 2024 or 2025?
That was the bill that was paid 2/1, February 1st, 25. This bill that we're paying is 4.65 million. So that alone, that bill alone, police and fire bill alone, we have 2% tax cap. And if you could let's just call our tax levy $20 million. And you think we can raise our taxes 2% a year without going over tax cap. 2% of 20 million is $400,000. That bill alone is increased almost double the tax cap. One pension bill. And that's, we're not talking about the other pension bill, we're not talking about medical insurance, which goes up anywhere from 5 to 10% a year on average. And that number is just as large, it's actually larger than the pension number in terms of the dollar amounts. So, there's a lot of budgetary pressure in these categories. So,
Yes, so for municipality our size, if you were to compare that to other municipalities within New York State, how does our appropriations compare in terms of employee benefits and personnel services?
I would tend, and it's not scientific, right? Just on my experience, our budget is probably weighted a little more towards personnel than some other budgets. But I say that with a caveat. It depends on the type of government, what services they provide, right? So if you look at our budget versus the county, our budget is more personal service oriented than theirs. They don't have paid fire, right? They have the county sheriff, but they do have corrections. We have paid police, paid fire. You're gonna have towns that don't have either, right? So those municipalities are gonna be more weighted towards other costs. So it's really hard to it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah, but it's similarly sized.
Similarly sized, and provide the same level of service. Most of those municipalities that would speculate would be similar to us, but overall will probably tend more to have slightly less personnel costs. Debt, we're a little on the high side, but not overly so, but I don't think I don't think that what we have here is unusual. I mean, any municipality in New York State has paid police and fire, has the same stresses. They're all gonna have this. The main increases we have for health insurance year over year is a state plan. Most municipalities in New York State have the same health insurance plan, are going to get passed down the same increase. So, typically that's why you'll see when you'll start getting municipalities increasing taxes, and usually you'll see it's not just one. You're hearing about multiple, municipalities across the state feeling the same type of budgetary pressures. And it's on two sides. It's the medical insurance bills, it's the pension bills, and they also, this is cities. Cities tend to receive a lot of sales tax money. When sales tax is level, stagnant, declining, that creates more pressure on cities to raise taxes. So, for several years back, the sales tax, it was a crazy thing with the pandemic. Everybody started shopping online, now it's Grubhub, it's, Instacart, it's Amazon. So, a lot of municipalities at the onset of the pandemic were concerned about sales tax revenue. Restaurants were shutting down. A lot of municipalities took some very drastic action. The city took a wait hold approach, and sales tax actually jumped during the pandemic. I mean, it was exponential growth during the pandemic because of all the online shopping. So we experienced that growth for a number of years. The last several years now, we're getting back, and you'll see that in the report, we're getting back to like that pre-pandemic growth model where it's going up a couple 100,000 a year, a couple of percent, which in light of our expenses, you see it's not, if our pension bill goes up $700,000 a year, your health insurance bill goes up $800,000. I'm just throwing out numbers, $1.5 million, but you can only raise taxes, $400,000 being in the cap. You have $1.1 million deficit there, and you haven't even thought about giving your employees a raise yet. So that's, that number's in the millions. So when sales tax only goes up a couple $100,000, puts a lot of pressure on property tax. Because by and large, sales tax and property tax are far and away the city's main revenue items. Other things may grow 50,000 a year, 10,000 a year. I mean, as you look through the budget, you'll see it. They're peanuts in the grand scheme of things.
So in terms of sales tax, the major contributor to sales tax, as a percentage, how much is gasoline tax? About 25%?
Oh, the sales tax?
Yes.
That's really tough to say, Terrell. I mean, it really depends. I mean, it's everything. It's gasoline's a big part of it. Vehicle sales are a large part of it. Restaurants are a large part of it.
I guess I'm asking that because I read that at some point last year that in terms of sales tax, gasoline tax comprised something like 25%. So
it could be. It could be.
And so I'm wondering, with the advent of, electric cars and everything, is that being factored in terms of like, depressing sales tax?
In terms of what we're looking at, we talk to the county, because they have access to more data because they actually are able to link into the state on this. So we do talk to them. So we try and look at what their projections are. We don't necessarily drill down to that level. But yeah, it's a good point. Probably over time that will start to cut into it. You would hope that there would be other offsetting increases. And, historically, sales tax doesn't go down unless in year to year, except for in pandemic, it's not pandemic, in recession, depression, right? Going back at the Great Recession, our sales tax dropped, I think it was $800,000 year over year. So that was a huge hit.
Yeah.
And that was a year, it was probably the most difficult budget year I was a part of that year. But, so that's always should be in the back of our minds that, if you become overly reliant on sales tax as part of your budget, the risk is when the economy starts to falter and you got to bring that number down, what does that do? Makes you raise sales tax to offset it. So.
All right, any more questions for the comptroller? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, next item on our agenda, request for a budget transfer from Health and Wellness, Director Quinn. How are you?
This is a pretty typical budget transfer. It's zero impact within the state of balancing three budget lines over 2025. Have any answer any questions that? I haven't updated committee report. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
We didn't see tonight's just one, because there's a number of budgetary transfers requests that are going to be similar in nature. At this time of year, you'll see it throughout the year, departments will submit requests to the common council to move money from certain budget lines to other budget lines. So they'll ask to move money from where they underspent money to other lines where they've either overspent or have pressure of overspending to help balance their budget. It's required by law that they do this under state law. It's also something that I, routinely request departments to do, right? Stay on top of the budget, submit budget modifications timely. And now to see even now that we're starting to close out 25, you will see a flurry of budgetary requests, budgetary modification requests to basically balance out 2025's budget. And then normally we have a special meeting in March for the final round of those. But these are all generally standard. If there's one that's where the department can't balance it from within their own budget, we'll say there's an estimated financial impact. That means we're either taking money from contingency or fund balance to cover that shortfall. I think most of these, if not all of these tonight, are no financial impact. They're covering from within our budget.
All right, any further questions? All right, can I get a motion?
Can you read?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
The committee report reading budget transfer for Health and Wellness Department for end of year budget balancing. It's from accounts to regular pay, vacation pay, and retirement accumulation. There is no financial impact. Motion by Sarah Pasty, second by Tara Wickens. All in favor?
I can guess.
Oh, any discussion? All in favor?
Michelle, Bill, Terrell, Sarah, Michael.
Okay.
Oh, the voting numbers.
Aye. Okay. That passes unanimously.
Anybody else at the table, of course, can participate in conversation, discussion, yeah. Both.
All right, we are going to jump
And then
to
you got
items
slices for it.
6 and 7 for the fire department. So Chief, William.
Okay, I have two transfers put in, both of them have zero impact on the budget. One from the fire side was moving money from various accounts to various accounts. The biggest one being coming out finalizes other income to cover some of the accounts. The other income was generated by having a strong collection of hazardous material recoups. We got hazardous material quality at the bill store, and we did very well this year as far as in receiving.
Good.
Receiving that, so yeah, they right. So that's a zero impact. Do you have any questions on that one as well, where one came from? You guys have any as well?
Any questions for the chief? All right. Sure, go ahead.
So how will this will work when we have an agenda item? This, sorry, Benny, just hold on for 1 second. How this works is the department head or whoever's is planning for the agenda item will discuss. The chair will ask if there's questions of the department head, and then we'll need to have a motion, a second, to enter into discussion, and that's when the table discuss. If there's still any further questions, but that will be that's always the order of things, and I'm not sure if that was made clear, so thank you for letting me.
Of course.
go for it.
All right, so that was the first one, the 75 column one.
On the ambulance side, this one was to move funds or revenue generated, things generated through the overtime line. So this was in the $237,881. And that was covered the overtime line that was overspent.
Okay, any question on that? All right, I'll read the first committee report, so we'll take two different votes because there are two different committee reports. First one is transfer from 3410 accounts to the following accounts, and it's a series of numbers that I'm not going to read, but the estimated financial impact is $0. Can I get a motion on that?
Motion.
Motion by Sarah Pasty, second by Ben Fogg. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, passed unanimously.
Chief, can we get maybe like a little tour for our members? So.
And then we're going to the firehouse, but there, okay, 24/7.
Stop by, so it'll be nice to come together. You want to
No, absolutely will. We can take a tour of the firehouse and show you the reason we need the city. Across the street.
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
We'll show you that reason, then we'll go across the street and show you the visual part.
They got it right, kids and kids.
It's right up the street from the firehouse.
Oh, no.
So we get to wait for the trucks all the time.
All right, so this budget, this committee report reads funds transferred from 4540 accounts to 4540.103 to make up for the shortage. There is a $0 financial impact. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Michelle Hirsch, second.
Second.
Second by Sarah Pasty. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you. Next, we will do, Planner Cahill. So we're gonna jump to item 10, that is a budget transfer for the Volunteer Firemen's Museum. Planner Cahill, all you.
Yes, so this basically is an expenditure that, we incurred, we had an emergency at the Volunteer Firemen's Museum. We had carbon monoxide being detected, so we had, we thought it was the equipment, being operated within the building and not being ventilated properly, but, then we thought it was possibly one of the monitoring systems, so we had the alarm company looking at it. And then in the course of the annual cleaning of the furnace, it was discovered that the chimney liner was falling down into the chimney and blocking the draft of the chimney. So, after talking with the building department engineering, it was determined that our best course of action and the service contractor that did the furnace, was to line the chimney. So we entered into an emergency PO, for over $18,000. We had the work done, completed, and so this budget transfer is just taking from all my lower lines to cover the balance needed to cover that cost. So.
Any questions for Planner Cahill? Sarah?
Yeah, I just had one question. In looking at from the two sheets, it looked like it was 17,000 and change.
There was a little bit of money left in one line for the contracted services, that's why it's a little less than the full cost.
That was just that question.
Any other questions? All right, I'll read our committee report. This is a request for transfer of funds within the fiscal year 2025 budget as shown on the attached spreadsheet. Which I do not have attached. To cover expenses associated with emergency repair work at the Volunteer Firemen's Museum located at 265 Fair Street. Can I get a motion? Motion by Terrell Nickens, second. Second by Ben Clark. Any discussion? Suzanne, I just wanted to thank you for the work that you've done and continue to do on the Volunteer Firemen's Museum. Everybody really appreciates it up to him.
It's
It's never ending.
We don't need it, I mean, fire, I've done fire.
No.
the irony. Okay, thank you.
All right, with that said, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? None? All right, motion carries. This committee report is blank, so just, put in your names.
Probably before, there'll be a couple months, we've already.
Yeah, but I think last year there was subcommittee reports that never caught up until the end of the year.
All right, next item on our agenda is the request for a budget transfer from KPD with Chief Tinty.
I mentioned the Chief Tinty I can handle for him.
Great.
His are all internal transfers. And this was a transfer request that I had asked him to submit, to start doing, cleanup for the 2025 year. I expect we'll see another transfer for 25, as, more bills come in and we wrap up the year, but it'll be much smaller. But fortunately, Chief Tinty was able to cover all the overages in his department's budget from within his own department's budget. So there's zero financial effect of this transfer. There's a list of accounts you can see where we're taking money from, moving money to. They had some, of note. You'll see there's transfer from general pay and one of the two accounts is overtime. They did have some vacancies during the year and vacancies tend to promote more overtime costs. So we had some savings in general pay, which is just straight payroll. That's salary, and we wanted to cover overtime overages.
Does anybody have any questions on that? All right, can I get a motion? Or, I'm sorry, let me read the committee report. This is a budget modification to balance the number of accounts. Can I get a motion?
Motion. Second.
Michelle Hirsch, Sarah Pasty. Any discussion?
Just make one comment while
Sure.
In the event that it does come up, and just so you're aware, police and fire, two of the bargaining units that have what's called mandatory staffing clauses. So they have to have a certain number of employees on shift at any point in time. So most of the overtime that you run into is, well, it's either mandatory staffing where, they have to meet certain number of employees on shift, or it's like calls. Like for fire, it's calls, police, it's, it can be investigative work, et cetera. But those minimum staffing requirements generate, a good amount of the overtime. And that's all contractual.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions, discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. All right, next item on the agenda is a request for budget transfer from Arts and Cultural Affairs. Director Potter said that was no longer needed, so that is off our agenda.
They didn't get that resolution.
She wasn't clear with the reason, she just said it was a mistake, but
Yeah, so maybe we'll see it next time. Item number 5 is a request for budget transfer from building safety. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah, I can cover that as well. Similarly to police, this is I'm just trying to get to the page here quick. An internal transfer with no financial impact. You'll see that the total transfer. You'll see there's it's under $10,000. Money's being moved from overtime to contractual vacation buyout. And then from there, it's all small dollar monies. And then, the year-end cleanup, there's no money being asked to be drawn from contingency or from fund balance, so it's transferred.
Any questions? All right. This is a committee report moving a number of accounts, a number of different accounts with an estimated financial impact of $0. Can I get a motion?
motion.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. All right, Mary, that's
Yep, so we have two for Parks and Recreation.
Well, can I extend on the mistake that happened on number 9, once you get there?
All right, let's do number 8 first.
Yes.
The budget transfer.
Sure. Which we're doing number 8 first.
Yes.
Let's make sure I was. So the number 8 is $39,483. I noticed in the packet, you don't have the full budgetary transfer, but like right downstairs, we'll print this out and pass it around. But this is similar to the other transfers we talked about tonight. It's moving monies from certain budget lines to other budget lines, all within the Parks and Rec budget. It's all being covered internally, nothing's being drawn from fund balance or contingency to cover that.
Pass this around, but if anybody has any questions for John? All right, I'll read the committee report. This is an internal budget transfer of $39,483 to reconcile department accounts. Estimated financial impact is $0. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Michelle Kirsch, second. Second by Tara Wiggins. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Number 9 is a budget amendment for staff, and I will pass that to Council President Shaw.
So this is fixing a mistake that somehow happened between councils. We have this passed out of committee last month, but I didn't want it to go, I wanted it to go on to 2026 because it's a budget amendment, so until the budget came, somehow the committee report, which finance members, you remember, we signed it, John actually printed it during the meeting, it disappeared. And we could then have a resolution, so the council didn't get to vote on it like we were supposed to in January, or like I was planning on January, so this is just redoing what the last committee had already decided to do. So it is a budget amendment for, I should be more specific with my description here, for a part-time staff, and it's something that the mayor agreed to change the budget because it was just a last-minute change from was a seasonal employee to a part-time employee to better run the department, not run the department, but have it run smoother. Council agreed with it. Committee agreed with it, the mayor agreed with it. But we just need to redo our committee report. But if there's obviously questions about it, I told Lindsay she didn't need to be here. She was here last month describing it for us. So I have her come again with her mistake. If anybody sees that committee report, let me know.
Does anybody have any questions? No? Okay, I'll read the committee report. This is a 2026 budget modification of $32,000 from various internal seasonal staff accounts to part-time employee account 7140.112 for the requested part-time recreation leader position. An estimated financial impact of $0. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Michelle Hirsch, second.
Second.
Second by Ben Falk. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is Rite Aid Corporation versus City of Kingston, and I will pass this to our assessor, Dan Baker, unless we should go right into.
You want to go right to executive?
Yeah, just communicate with their attorney, just see it, he should be available right now, we can go in.
Attorney client or is that?
Attorney client session.
All right, I am going to say that we go into attorney-client session,
Can we?
and we can allow city staff to remain.
All right, we're back. All right, we're back in, guys.
And I would say to all learning council members, please, if you have any questions about what Dan does, please feel free to go.
I'm happy to discuss anything that I can.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I will read the committee report now. This is, committee report reads authorization of settlement in the matter of Rite Aid Corporation v. City of Kingston. The Common Council authorizes the assessment of 485 Broadway, SBL number 56.26-10-1 to be reduced for the assessment years 2024 and 2025. In the assessment year 2024, the assessment is reduced from $2,430,000 to $1,881,000. In assessment year roll 2025, the assessment is reduced from $2,430,000 to $1,551,000. Estimated financial impact is $0. Can I get a motion?
Motions.
Second by Michelle Hirsch, second by Sarah Pasty. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Pass, any opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
All right, next on our agenda is the sales tax sharing agreement with Manoa.
Thank you. For folks who have gone through this process before, every 5 years, the city of Kingston and the county of Ulster join for sales tax sharing agreement. This lays out what has been a long-standing agreement that this county shares 11.5% of all of the sales tax collected by them in Ulster County. That has allowed, as John mentioned, to allow us to keep sales tax at a relatively stable level in our budget, while various agreements over time have put stipulations on the city in order to be able to receive that money from the county. So, for instance, our last agreement with the county 5 years ago mandated that the city of Kingston take care forever the town of Linear Park, for instance, or the trail that cuts through there. And so there's things that have been added over time, but I'm happy to report that this agreement is what I would consider a very clean agreement, clean renewal that would allow the city of Kingston to just continue to share in 11.5% of revenue collected by the county and for the next 5 years. So the new agreement starts in March. It goes through the time. We would be asking for also authorization from the council to let me sign on to that agreement. It does need to pass the Ulster County Legislature first, and then it will come to me for signature. So this would be authorizing us. The only change, actually, in the entire agreement is actually related to the towns. And so the towns and villages in the county have traditionally shared 3% of the overall collections. And in this last agreement 5 years ago, there was a stipulation saying that they would share an additional 1%. And that would then be split up between all of the towns and villages. That was only done if the county hit a certain benchmark in sales tax. And so that a little bit complicated. Every year there had to be math that was done, and then every year the towns wouldn't really know how much they were getting, and it was based on sales tax growth. And so now going forward, the county executive is presenting just a flat. The towns will receive an extra 0.5%. And that would be for the next 5 years. So it would be 3.5% that the towns would share. With the only caveat being is that if as a part of the state's potential future cost, I would say sharing, that's not the right word, the passing on of costs related to the management of Medicare, if that was to change drastically, which has been proposed potentially in certain circles, that would have a huge dramatic impact on the county. And so at that point,
if the county was going to pick up all those costs, they would not provide an extra 0.5% to the towns, but it would not impact our 11.5%. So that's the overview. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have related to sales tax or the agreement or how the system works.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask how the 11.5% was agreed upon, when it was initially agreed upon, and has that ever changed and increased or decreased over time? It's not really a history of.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, I have been here for 10 years. John was here another almost 10 years before that. And it's not changed in our time, but I do believe at one point it was maybe 10%. But don't quote me on that. But it hasn't changed very much. And the reason why, in general, there was a larger sharing of the city of Kingston is that cities have the ability to have their own sales tax. So we have the ability to have our own sales tax in the city of Kingston. By foregoing that ability to have our own sales tax, the county is able to have an additional 1% of sales tax that they can collect countywide. And so by doing that, it's a benefit to the county that they can collect 4% countywide. And in the end, it's a benefit to the city. By giving that up, we're able to get more than maybe what we would have collected on our own. It's really hard to calculate what that would have been, right? Because we haven't had sales tax data to just what happens within the city of Kingston boundaries and for the people who live here. And so it's a hard calculation to have, but that is kind of the give and take where we've always kind of gotten a larger percentage of sales tax. But this is a number that if you look at other cities and their counties, I would say that our agreement kind of lands in the middle. We don't get the most, we definitely don't get the least. And I think that we've found kind of a sweet spot where other counties, especially counties that have more cities in them, the sales tax sharing agreements are sometimes more complicated and less where we happen to be the only city in this county. So.
Any further questions? All right. I do not have a committee report for this.
Quick question. Go ahead. In a sense of like what the ballpark is for the year.
Yeah. So overall, the city of Kingston, we get about 20-ish million, but countywide, that's about 170, 180 million countywide. So yes, the county still retains, even under this agreement, the county retains 85% of all sales tax.
To sign, exactly. So is there any thought that it might be assurance over time, or if we thought it was 5-year agreement, but has there ever been an attempt to negotiate that?
Oh, I asked.
I understand.
I asked again this year too.
The answer was no.
Yeah. I would say that we do have a good relationship with Ulster County, and I think one of the things that we've seen Ulster County do with their, I would say, maybe additional sales tax dollars over the last couple of years is that they've put that into different reserve accounts to be able to help with. They created their affordable housing fund, and they've created some other funds. And I think the city of Kingston has been, and some of our housing agencies have been, recipients of those funds. And so we're not barred from accessing some of those other county resources. And so while our actual percentage has not gone up, we at least have been able to tap into some of those county dollars. While we may not have any county roads or any of those types of other county services, there have been a few new programs that at least have brought some dollars. I mean, that's what I was told when I asked my question. So, yeah.
All right. The committee report reads, resolution of the Common Council of the City of Kingston to approve the mayor's authorization to sign an intermunicipal agreement with Ulster County for the sales tax.
Intermunicipal and sales tax agreement.
And sales tax sharing agreement. with Ulster County. Can I get a motion? Motion by Michelle Hirsch, second by Terrell Mickens. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Mayor. Next item on our agenda is also the mayor, that is the Pike Plan Settlement Agreement. Is there anything you want to speak out before, or are we going to executive session or turn
Well,
clients?
Barbara is on call, so, I mean, it would fit in either, so, do you have preference?
Whatever you guys want to call it.
I will say that we can go into attorney-client session, and we will, city staff to, sorry, Tanya?
Exactly. Yes, I have to call Barbara.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right, we're back then.
All right, I have a committee report. It says, this authorizes the mayor to execute height plan legal settlement agreements in the amount of $35,680 for 53 North Front Street, $27,400 for 302 Wall Street, $23,900 for 42 North Front Street, and $23,460. Yes. $460 for 40 North Front Street. Additionally, a budgetary transfer as follows is needed to fund the settlements. And it is to an account number in the amount of $110,440 to, I'm sorry, it's from the fund balance in the amount of $110,440 to general contract expenses. Do I have a motion on that? Sorry, that was right.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Michelle Hirsch, second by Sarah Pasty. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Yes, no. No.
All right. That passes 4-1 with Alderwoman Mickens in opposition. The resolution passes.
Even some of the communication we have as old business.
That would be up to you guys. I think we will have more. So if you want to leave it old business and keep it open, then that would allow me to just send it.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
You all.
All right.
Is this yours?
Oh, yes, always. Thank you very much.
I think we should just mention it.
Okay.
Next time.
All right, the next item on our agenda is old business, and that is request for bond financing for the Rondout Lighthouse electric restoration. This was discussed in our previous meeting in which we had a representative from FEMA speak with us, as well as Planner Cahill. We got a number of questions related to the overall cost.
Dave's feeling we're gonna cover 90% of us, but we weren't sure about the 10, and the price went like skyrocketed. And at that time, they weren't sure where that 10% would come, if it would be a city obligation or not, and I don't think we've gotten any answer.
No.
Yeah, so I spoke with Sue today, and she said the bids for the work aren't even back yet, like they're not due till Friday, so I don't even know what the overall number is.
What was the value? It was a $6.5 million bond, and so our obligation would be $650,000. So with no real additional information, I would recommend that we save this discussion for next month. And with that said, that is the end of our business. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Motion by Farrell Mickens, second by Michelle Hirsch. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you, Elisa.
Thank you. Good night.